In 1931, a man with fourth-grade education dared to reimagine the automobile and birthed a legend. From electrifying 1890s Vienna with homemade generators to surviving Nazi collaboration charges, Ferdinand Porsche's story mirrors Germany's turbulent 20th century. His obsessions birthed the Volkswagen Beetle, hybrid engines, and the 911, a car so iconic it outsold rock stars. As is often the case, a company would have no history without the story of its founder. It all began on September 3rd, 1875, when a boy named Ferdinand was born into a family of blacksmiths in the small village of Maffersdorf in former Austria-Hungary, now part of the Czech Republic. The Porsche family wasn't wealthy, but they weren't struggling either. Ferdinand's father owned a repair shop and, being a skilled tinsmith, was highly respected among the locals and even elected mayor of his town. Ferdinand had an older brother and an older sister. His father planned to make his older son his successor, but that brother died in an accident while working as an apprentice in his father's workshop. After this, Ferdinand became the eldest son and heir, and his parents had to work hard to raise him as a dignified man. While his father worked in the shop, his mother took care of her son's education. It was his mother who taught Ferdinand his first lessons in reading and writing. When the boy turned 12, his father began taking him to the workshop, and Ferdinand enthusiastically helped his father despite tasks being beyond his capabilities. 4 years later, the young man attended night school in a neighboring village, cycling there after working all day in his father's workshop. Despite these difficulties, Ferdinand excelled in school. At just 15 years old, he built his own generator, to which he connected a light bulb, and later supplied electricity to his entire house. Thus, the Porsche home became the second in town to have electricity. The young man acquired a good reputation for practical skills and ingenious thinking. When he turned 18, he left home and headed to Vienna. There, he began his adult and independent life. With money saved from years of work in his father's workshop, Ferdinand rented a small attic on the outskirts of Vienna and actively began looking for employment. While reviewing advertisements in the local newspaper, he found a job offer at the Lohner factory. Despite having no higher education, having only completed fourth grade, the young man presented himself at the factory where locomotives and even electric cars were being produced. At first, 36-year-old Ludwig Lohner laughed upon hearing the young provincial's desire to work not as just any worker, but as an engineer. However, when Lohner saw letters of recommendation from the local administration, he couldn't believe his eyes. Before him stood an 18-year-old with no formal education who had managed to bring electricity to his house and the town hall of his village. In short, Lohner took a risky step and hired Ferdinand, but with one condition: Porsche had to obtain a diploma. The decisive year in Ferdinand's biography was 1897. It was precisely at this time that the young engineer designed his first stepped motor in his free time. His next personal project became known in 1898, an electric car without transmission. The car stood out from others with its compact size and surprisingly high speed for the time, 40 kilometers per hour. A significant part of the car's weight was composed of high-capacity lead-acid batteries, and its range was limited. With a single charge, the car could travel for approximately 1 hour. The self-propelled vehicle, named Lohner Porsche, was equipped with 2 electric motors of 2.5 horsepower each. It had no mechanical transmission. Instead, the electric motors were located in the front wheel hubs. It was the first front-wheel drive electric car. Moreover, the car wasn't just electric. It had a small gasoline engine that powered a generator. The generator produced electricity that recharged the batteries, which powered the electric motors. This was the first example of a hybrid propulsion system consisting of an internal combustion engine, batteries, and electric motors. Thanks to this project, Porsche was named chief engineer of the company at just 24 years old. Later, in early 1900, he received the Grand Prix at the Universal Exhibition in Paris for his invention and gained recognition from many famous engineers and designers of the time. From this moment, Porsche began actively developing various means of transportation. After completing university and obtaining an engineering education, Porsche immersed himself completely in the automotive industry. In 1906, he became the technical director and chief designer of the Viennese company that produced automobiles under the name Austro-Daimler. During this period of his life, Porsche became involved in racing. In one of them, his Austro-Daimlers took all the prizes. He even piloted his own creation. But life wasn't just about racing. He also had a personal life. At this time, he met a young woman named Aloysia Johanna Kayes. Soon, he took her to the altar. She accepted and became not only Ferdinand's wonderful wife, but also the mother of his 2 children, a girl named Louise and a boy named Ferry. World War I marked a significant period. Germany actively participated in it, and Ferdinand Porsche was involved in developing military technology, vehicles with hybrid propulsion systems, engines for airships and aircraft on. One of Porsche's notable achievements was creating an artillery tractor for a large 30.5 centimeter mortar cannon for his outstanding contribution to the military industry development. Despite not having a university education, Porsche was appointed honorary professor at the Vienna Technical University. and received a decoration from the Kaiser. However, at the end of the 1920s, Ferdinand, his son Ferry, and his daughter's husband Anthony found themselves in a French prison, accused of collaborating with the German army. It was Louise, the daughter, who rescued them by tirelessly visiting officials' offices day and night to free all the men. On several occasions, she met with French authorities, trying to justify her father's. After being released in 1926, Ferdinand assumed the position of chief engineer at Mercedes. The most famous Mercedes created under Porsche's direction were the sports models of the S-Series. His first achievement as chief designer of Daimler-Benz was the Mercedes 360 automobile. This sports vehicle enjoyed great popularity, not only among wealthy Germans, but also among true enthusiasts of elite technology. Ferdinand understood that he should dedicate his life to his own business. At 55 years old, he left Daimler to pursue his own path. One of Ferdinand Porsche's main life principles was a simple formula: honest and diligent work will always yield results. At the time, the automobile market was dominated by Ford's fast cars, but the post-war period marked an era of stagnation in all areas. Moreover, would impoverished Europe buy a car for $1,500? Porsche was not at all satisfied with Ford's cars. They seemed too simple to him, and at the same time, complicated to handle. Not even KDF Wagon's popular car satisfied Ferdinand. It all began when he looked around and, not seeing the car of his dreams, decided to build it himself. Porsche wanted something different. His car had to be modern, fast, and reliable. One that wouldn't become obsolete even after 20 years. Additionally, it had to be accessible to the public and completely new, designed from scratch. On April 25th, 1931, in Stuttgart, Ferdinand Porsche's independent design studio was inaugurated in a large two-story building. The first commission for the studio came from the Wanderer Company. They needed a high-speed car with a 2-liter engine. Several months were assigned to complete the work, but Porsche naturally fulfilled the task. In 1932, the Nazis came to power in Germany with Adolf Hitler at the helm. Hitler, like Porsche, was a car enthusiast. Hitler presented a rather difficult challenge to German industrialists: create a popular car on a tight schedule that could transport 4 people at a speed of at least 80 kilometers per hour, consume 5 liters of fuel per 100 kilometers, and cost no more than 1,000 marks. In short, it was a car that ordinary Germans could afford, yet with quite high specifications. Ferdinand Porsche presented his popular car project and won. Through the joint efforts of father and son, they created plans for the future Volkswagen car and shared their developments with Hitler. Literally days later, Hitler declared from all podiums, the German people, in the figure of the common worker, will no longer walk to work. They will get there in a popular car that all German citizens can afford. During the war, Porsche only showed his best side. When electrical energy was lacking, he invented a way to obtain it from windmills. He also actively worked on creating military equipment. However, in 1945, Porsche, along with his son Ferdinand, found himself in prison again. The men were accused not only of collaborating with the fascist leadership, but also of exploiting prisoners of war for personal purposes. Ferdinand Porsche's son was released almost a year later and celebrated his liberation by creating a racing car for the Italian company Cisitalia. The money raised, which amounted to approximately 1 million francs, was handed over to the French authorities as ransom for his father's freedom. Even when Porsche Sr. was behind bars, he didn't lose heart and continued working on designs for future cars. It's even argued that during his imprisonment, the engineer actively collaborated with the Renault company, helping create the 4CV model. But in any case, prison was not a rest and had a strong impact on the engineer's health. In total, the engineer spent 22 months in prison, and on November 19, 1950, Porsche suffered a severe stroke, after which he died 2 months later. However, before his death, he was able to enrich his not very sweet life with some happy moments. One of his dearest wishes came true. The Beetle was launched into mass production, and together with his son, the Model 356 car was built. It became the first production car of the new and grand company called Porsche. After Ferdinand Porsche's death, the company's direction passed into the hands of his children and grandchildren. His son made a significant contribution to further development. In 1950, he returned the company to the city where it was founded, Stuttgart. Under his leadership, important decisions were made for the company right away. First, Porsche abandoned the old technological canons and replaced the obsolete material used in bodies. Second, the company stopped acquiring engines from the Volkswagen Group and began developing its own engines. In 1951, the company established itself as the best manufacturer of cars used in racing. The reason for this was the new Porsche 550 Spyder model. Its main distinctive feature was the soft top and flat front window. This model was so popular among car enthusiasts that other companies were actively trying to match Porsche cars. It was thus that in 1963, at the Frankfurt Fair, a new legend appeared: the Porsche 911 with a 2-liter engine and 130 horsepower, as well as a 5-speed manual transmission. At that time, it was difficult to say that this model would become a legend, as despite its excellent characteristics, its main disadvantage was its high price. To make the car more accessible and sellable, Ferdinand Jr. resorted to a clever stratagem. Soon, the Model 912 with 4 cylinders was launched, and a little later, the 914 version was offered to enthusiasts, for whose creation German colleagues from Volkswagen put in effort. The history of the Porsche company as a purely family business came to an end in 1972. The brand went public after a restructuring. One of Ferdinand Porsche's grandsons, Ferdinand P, joined Audi and then Volkswagen, where he eventually rose to the position of CEO of the group. The leadership chair of the company passed to Peter Schutz, who immediately returned the 911 model to production. He actively modified existing models and worked on building new ones. In March 1977, the 8-cylinder Porsche 928 with 240 horsepower was introduced, which became the European Car of the Year in 1978. The 90s were characterized by close collaboration between the brand and the Japanese manufacturer Toyota. As a result of this fruitful collaboration, the concept of efficient production was raised. Porsche also received help in developing hybrid vehicles. This led to the creation of an updated version of the 911, with a more powerful engine, retractable roof, and hydraulic traction. The most unusual car in the brand's history was presented in 2002. It was the Porsche Cayenne SUV, developed in collaboration with Volkswagen, and in many aspects similar to the Volkswagen Touareg. For its production, the company built a new plant in Leipzig, and production began the following year. The Porsche Cayenne immediately became the brand's most demanded product, although the reaction to its controversial design and the very fact of the existence of such a car was ambiguous. The company's main efforts since then have actually been focused on a single goal: preparing for the launch of the 4-door Porsche Panamera, which was officially presented in April 2009 at the Shanghai Auto Show. The second generation of the Panamera was presented in 2016 and was significantly different from the previous generation. In 2017, the company celebrated its greatest achievement. On May 11, 2017, in Zuffenhausen, the millionth example of the 911 model rolled off the assembly line. The history of the Porsche company is further evidence that the more passionate someone is about their work, the more they can achieve. It is considered that thanks to Ferdinand Porsche, German origin cars acquired their high reputation, primarily as the most reliable, durable, and prestigious. As Ferdinand once said, words still known by all of us today: if you want to do something well, do it yourself. Friends, what do you personally think of this car brand? Have you had any experience driving a Porsche? Be sure to share your opinion in the comments. Also, if you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. See you soon!